And we are live. Welcome on your TVs in Texas and Louisiana on the Smart Money Culture TV network, as well as streaming around the world on LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, YouTube, and the mix. It is as they are every 24 hours these days, is just absolutely crazy. We have the Hong Kong ETFs. Bitcoin ETFs have been approved, but that seems to be, overshadowed by what else is going on in the world. Gold's down, silver's down, stocks are pretty much down, oil's holding, natural gas. Now, natural gas, you wanted to be in. Natural gas is moving up over the last few days. But crypto's down, Bitcoin's down. Sir David, how are you?
Doing fantastic. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Impact Money Show, where every dollar has the power to transform these industries. Pretty excited today, even though Bitcoin is down a little bit, 61.5 or so. We'll take a visionary look from Matt Dixon and his market charts. So pretty excited for the day. I love Tuesdays in business, rock and roll.
We have a bit of a treat as well today. We have our friend Gerard Daché of the Government Blockchain Association joining the show. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I had a good call with Gerard. Gerard and I mean, at this point, we're like the old dogs, right? We had a good call yesterday, Sunday. I think Sunday or Saturday. I can't remember. He has the Future of Money Governance and Law event that he does here, I think every quarter or at least a couple times a year here in Washington, D.C. And that is happening on the 2nd and the 3rd of May. So Thursday, Friday this week. So I will be on location at the event, of course, covering it. And I'm pretty excited for that. So we have a discount code for everybody, which is Impact Money. So Impact Money is the discount code. You get it's either 15 or 20% off. And if you're in the area, of course, I want to meet with you, so you need to come. And that's going to be pretty awesome. And then as well, he's going to tell you a lot of what is going on. You know, the Government Blockchain Association, he has been working at this. You know, I always joke with people, it takes like 10 years. It takes 10 years, guys. A lot of times. You know, you look at Microsoft took 10 years. Amazon took 10 years. You look at a lot of the different things, it takes a while. And he's been working at this Government Blockchain Association for, I don't know if it's been 10 years or not, but it's been years. And they got picked up now. Their guidelines have been picked up by the United Nations, and they're on the website. And if you want to work with the United Nations, have you followed this criteria that the Government Blockchain Association has outlined? They have tens of thousands of members, and I'm really proud of them and really excited to have them on the show. So that's going to be great. So we'll bring you that a little bit later in the hour. Of course, we'll have the great Matt Dixon join us earlier than that. There is quite a bit, as I said, going on. China, and I think one of the reasons why the markets are bleeding is this move by China. China is now, well, you know, they sent Blinken there. Basically, first of all, the first thing that we did was we passed the $9 billion for Taiwan. And $9 billion, it doesn't like ring so, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money, until you start to look at other countries' debts. You know what I mean? And like, you know, when I was a kid, they always said, oh, we owe China money and this and that, which is all baloney anyway. But if you look at how much money different countries owe China, there's not one of them that is over $9 billion. And so that amount of money that we just, you know, stole from you and me, okay, because that's the way it works. They take it from us via inflation. It has really spun up the hornet's nest over there. And, you know, guys, we need to be careful because there are 1.5 or 1.6, 1.7 billion Chinese people. And there's like 300 and 30 or 40 million of us, guys. Like, we can't just go around starting wars with everybody. So we passed this money for Taiwan, and then Biden is supposed to go over there and have a state visit with Xi. I think I'm saying that right. The president of China, who is a big bad dude, man. I mean, this guy is no joke. And Biden just sends Blinken over there, and Blinken does nothing by all appearances but really make Xi mad. Like, there, I don't know if you saw, there's a couple of videos of him walking around. He asks one of his surrogates or whatever, when is this guy leaving? And the person said, tomorrow or tonight or whatever it was. And he said, okay, good. And then he immediately moves. As soon as he's gone, he starts. And now Fatah and Hamas are in China having a meeting right now, trying to mend the relationships. Now, as versed as I am on world politics and finance and everything else, I don't know who Fatah is so much. I know the name, but I'm not familiar enough with that situation over there to know Fatah so much. But anyway, China is now taking this forward stance on the Middle East. And of course, this has been the United States baby over there. Actually, Joe Biden himself says that Israel is the aircraft carrier of the United States. If we didn't have Israel, then we would have to take over some other country or whatever he said. I don't remember, but something like that. So this has been, a forward, quote unquote, kind of a base of our influence for all these years. So if China takes this major step in putting peace together, and it's not really that hard in a way. There's like less than, I think there's like, I mean, how many people are in Israel? I think let me just do some numbers here. Population of Israel. Yeah. 10 million people, 9.5 million people. Okay. And you have one, they're taking on, they're like, I don't know, there's 1.3 billion Muslims. Now, of course, not all of them are hostile, I suppose, but they're all, it's like fighting somebody's cousin and thinking that they're not going to probably caucus with their cousins. Like, of course they are, most of them. So I think that has a lot to do with the bleeding of the market, with the pulling of the market. Actually, and as well, Matt did look at the charts yesterday and say that it looks like this is going to go down a little bit further. So I should probably put some buy orders in at 10 or 11 cents on the doggy coin. I might do that. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. Netanyahu arrest warrant is looming as well by the International Criminal Court. And then the United States government is saying, we're going to sanction you guys if you do it. And it looks like the International Criminal Court is going to do it anyway. Whether you think that he should be sanctioned or not, the way that I want everyone to look at it is looking back. Do you think that we should have killed 500,000 people in Iraq? And I think most of us agree that we probably shouldn't have killed 500,000 people in Iraq. And I think that if you step back and you look at all the killing going on over there, it's probably, we need to take some better options. And so I think all of that, of course, is having a big effect. Natural gas, though, like I said, natural gas, it has recovered. And, we covered natural gas quite a bit in the early days of this show because it was moving down so much, and the Houthis were, with their blockade, were really having a big effect from what it looked like. But I'll share this screen. Natural gas, big mover. It was up almost 2%, I think, yesterday. Is up another 2% today, over 2%. Look at that. You wanted to be in natural gas. See here, we were down here. I mean, this is like just days ago. This is a 5-day chart. Boom. So, I didn't I didn't finish sharing my screen. There we go. Here we are. So this is the 5-day chart right here. So we dipped quite a bit and then rebounded here. So I put out a post last night, and I talked about DeSantis, Trump. Here you go. This is better look at it. And I'll just pull that up real quick, because one of the things that I have been I don't know what the right word is. Well, I haven't liked to see it. Is why are we arresting all of these? Why is the police and the National Guard and everybody so quick to arrest all of the people that are protesting, but they're not arresting the people that have come into the country illegally? You don't even have a citizenship, and are now collecting tax dollars every week, and services, medical and housing, and it's just is weird. And this is one of those moments again where everybody kind of needs to step back and what is going on here? Why are we arresting United States citizens for protesting? A lot of them kids. They're kids. Guys, I didn't even start really thinking clear until I was 40 years old. I mean, I guess I was a late bloomer or something, but I mean, seriously, they're kids. Why are we arresting the kids and letting the criminals who are crossing our border, registering, and then you have to pay them to live? What's going on? And so I've been really quiet about it, to be honest. And I said, am I the only one? And it did get some pretty good response here. Great question. This person says, because it's all a show to create division. No, you're not. I'm frustrated by this. Great point. I wonder too. That's one way to take the focus off the border. You make an excellent argument. I don't know. They're all Biden voters, so go figure. I wouldn't say that all the kids are Biden voters. I also would say that this voting block is prime for us to capitalize on, or for Trump to capitalize on. Trump always actually said that Black Lives Matter, and I'm not saying these guys are Black Lives Matter. He said those guys are with us. They just don't know it yet. He said that a number of times. Anyway, I think this summer is going to be pretty rough about all that, how that is concerned, all those types of things. We have mass stabbing in London. We have mass shooting here. I mean, all over the last 24 hours. It's going to be rough, and it's already hot, and that never is a good thing for these types of things. It's hot in DC. Yesterday it was 91 degrees, and it's April 30th, so it's going to be hot. It looks like it's going to be hot, and that also makes tensions higher. Let's see what the charts tell us. The great Matt Dixon here backstage. Matt, how are you, sir?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you. Yes, interesting what you're saying about Netanyahu, Israel, and so on.
Yep.
Interestingly, though, they're the only democracy in the Middle East, and as you say, put things into context.
Well, I will say real quick, though, actually, that was one of the points I want to make, is that democracy, as it stands right now, is a failed experiment. These aren't democracies, because we have fake elections on magic electronic voting machines and paper ballots for the most part. And then we have an administrative state or a deep state that runs everything. So that was actually one of the points I wanted to make earlier, is that these aren't even democracies. So I think that's a big part of the problem. If they did have a real democracy, if we had a real democracy, then things would be operating better.
Yeah, I think Netanyahu was indicted. I'm not sure when. I think it was as far back as 10 years ago for
Okay.
bribery, corruption, breach of trust,
Yep.
and nothing's happened with that yet. So I'm not sure how long ago it was. Maybe it's more recent than that. But he's actually potentially up for 10 years in jail. That's the potential sentence he could get.
I mean, I'm sure nothing will happen, but it's the whole political part of it. And I think it plays heck with the markets.
Yeah, it's shocking. But as you say, I mean, you talk about deaths, and again, everyone's so quick to jump on other people. The hypocrisy is just, mind-boggling when you talk about, deaths in Iraq, deaths here, deaths there, and all these different conflicts. And then we just try to focus on maybe an easy target that everybody hates. I just think that is one of the issues that we've got here. So we've got another big trial today, haven't we? Well, I say trial, it's supposed to be sentencing today. It's easy.
Oh man, is it today?
It's supposed to be today, yeah. So
Man, poor
is it
guy.
going to be 3 years?
I hope for leniency. I mean, this guy, the way I mentioned it a couple of times, we together we donated a bunch of PPE, personal protective equipment to the U.S. military together. I was able to, pull some strings here in DC and get it in. You would be surprised at how hard, and this was at the height of things, before, you can say, oh, it was fake or whatever you want. But I mean, in the beginning, we didn't know that much, and we were just all trying to help. But you'd be surprised at how hard it is to actually donate something to the U.S. military. They're like, everybody's like, nobody wants to take it. They're like, oh, I don't know, guys, because it's dangerous to take it, because if something's wrong, then you're in trouble. If you don't do anything about it, then, so anyway, but we were able to do that. I mean, this guy has done a lot of good stuff. And I also, he's apologized, and he's taken full responsibility, and he's here and everything else. So I'm really hoping for leniency. That's rough. That could be playing a bit in the markets as well.
I would hope so. He does an awful lot of philanthropic work, helping out people for free from the kindness of his heart. And he's done that for a long time.
Yes.
So yes, maybe he wasn't strict enough with KYC and so on. I think that's the main
But
charge.
nobody was. I mean, these were the early days. You know what I mean? He was one of the first ones even to go KYC.
Yeah, just seems to be the scapegoat for it all. I don't know. Anyway,
I know they're gonna want. I hope not, but it looks like they're gonna want to make an example out of him.
Yeah,
and So yeah. I do want to say we have, and I don't know what time you came in the back room, but we have Gerard coming on from GBA Global from at a quarter till the hour. So.
Okay, I'll keep it reasonably short then. We'll jump into the chart. So I'm just sharing a chart now. I did mention that I was going to take a little look into what's going on in Japan with the Japanese economy, because we saw yesterday, basically the yen got quite a lot stronger. Maybe it was I might just jump into that. Maybe I'll jump into that later, the chart. But basically the yen got stronger yesterday, sharply stronger, but it's rebounding today. And we had figures out today, industrial production, minus 6.7%. That's the annual industrial production out of Japan. So very negative. And in fact, the most negative it's been in over a year now. So the Japanese economy appears to be showing signs of strain, and it could be, well, I'm not quite sure why. I know they've also got, I'm not showing it here, I don't think, but I know the unemployment rate ticked up a bit. And as you probably remember, I'm always saying on this show that unemployment, cycle low in unemployment is actually a strong sign of recession, impending recession. And we've got a cycle low in US, it seems, and we've a cycle low in Japan, and it's now picking up. So maybe that's a sign that recession is coming. And as I say, we've seen the economy slowing down dramatically. But we've got ISM. America at the moment is still hanging on really well. I mean, we actually moved into positive territory for ISM manufacturing. This was the last read that we had. And the read that we're expecting now, the expectation is still above 50. And 50 is the kind of break-even point. Anything above 50 shows expansion, and below 50 retraction. So the US economy, the manufacturing was retracting for a whole year until last month, when it started to expand again. So there are really mixed signs. And obviously, we've got the Fed coming out tomorrow with their interest rate decision. Almost definitely going to stay on hold. But I've been reading, commentaries around it, what's likely to happen. And they're saying that he may actually pivot towards a more hawkish stance on the US dollar. And I think that is why the markets are taking, basically, they're kind of reacting to these rumors. If he takes a more hawkish stance, that means basically either higher interest rates for longer, or even they could potentially raise interest rates. Not this time round, definitely not, I would say, but maybe in the near future. And obviously the talk was they were going to do 5 interest rate cuts, then 4, then 3, now perhaps 2 or none. Who knows? So they can't afford to cut interest rates because inflation is still very much elevated. So, oops.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I missed that news, but you're right. So what the markets like to do is, of course, everybody, they like to, they like to pregame. They like to be ready. So if they think that the Fed is going to take a hawkish tone, they're going to bring the markets down so that they're ready.
Yeah. So this is the Japanese yen chart, the dollar yen basically. So we saw yesterday the sharp fall here was basically strong yen, weak dollar that caused that fall yesterday. So you always have to look at the two sides of the equation. Was it actually weakness in the dollar or was it strength in the yen? But then today we're seeing a reasonably solid rebound so far anyway. And funnily enough, that's off the back of this really weak industrial production out of Japan. So, and unemployment ticking up. So it's really weird that these things tend to go, it really is so often it's buy the rumor, sell the news. So maybe they're expecting really weak, but actually it came out way weaker than expected. Industrial production was massively lower than expected. And yet the yen has appreciated. So sometimes these markets, you kind of need to think counterintuitively to see what's going to happen. But we are seeing a bit of a dive on everything at the moment. Even S&P futures, you can see down a little bit there. But the main rest of the market, and again, that's probably to be expected. And I've said maybe, just possibly, we've actually already seen the all-time high. I did expect that we would actually have one more push higher, but that's often the case. When you're expecting a final push higher in a market, often it doesn't quite make it, and it catches a lot of people out. A lot of people who wanted to stay long. And there's enough pressure on the markets right now to say that potentially the high is already in if we do start to see the US economy beginning to slow. But earnings have been quite good out of the US. So again, the rest of the world is actually showing a lot of signs of strain, but the US is actually showing mixed signs right now. But if the US were to turn down towards the negative, it would have a really bad impact across the other markets. But even so, we're seeing a lot of negative price action. And the only positive we see in this collection, these are yesterday's prices really with Tesla and so on. But with the crypto assets, well, the other assets, we're looking at oil is actually up and DXY, dollar index, is higher. So dollar index is only a touch higher. It did actually test much higher earlier on today, and it's already coming back down again. So again, this will be treading water a little bit ahead of tomorrow's interest rate decision. And if they turn hawkish tomorrow, then you can expect that we will see this push up that I've been expecting for some time. You can see this arrow I've got here. I've been expecting for some time that we're going to at least push one more leg higher with dollar index. So I'm expecting a bit of strength in US dollar. So if we see a pivot towards hawkishness from Jerome Powell tomorrow in his statement, or even with the answers in the press conference, then I do think we'll see a bit higher. And then all of this sell-off that we're seeing, all of this red that we're seeing here in the crypto will be justified if we see stronger dollar, because that's normally, as we said, when we look long-term on these charts, whenever we see a high in US dollar, it normally equates with a low in crypto and vice versa. So if we see pushing to a higher high here in US dollar, then potentially that will equate with lower crypto. So the crypto are already taking that into consideration, I think. And We're seeing a strong move here down. Again, looking like ABC, it'd be worth just checking out whether there's any equality yet between those wave sizes. And all we would do is get our little Fibonacci measuring tool. We'd measure this A wave from here to the beginning of the A wave here. We transpose that to top of the B wave here. And we still potentially have some way to go. So we're talking 60,700 is potentially where the C wave might realistically end. So that would fit perfectly with our little thesis that US dollar may be ticking higher towards this level here, 106, 106.60 something. So US dollar would tick a bit higher. That would mean that we still have a little bit lower potentially to complete this ABC movement. Yeah, that's correct. The ABC movement would take us on Bitcoin to 60,705. So that would be where the A wave is exactly equal to the C wave.
60,000?
60,700. So potentially, I guess this was to be expected. As I say, this correction is probably not complete. There's a lot of overlap there, so I do think we still probably have lower to go. And this will be until tomorrow. But it could be, even if we see hawkish news, it may have been that, you see, there are people who already know pretty well what's going to happen tomorrow, what the statement is. It's out
quite
there.
a few people, and people that I'm sure, since if you have that information, you can make a lot of money with it. So these people are people that move markets.
Yeah, I'm reading a book at the moment called Black Edge, and you can imagine what Black Edge is about. It's about an edge through effectively insider information, and is relating. There's a lot. It's a fictional thing, but there's a lot of truth behind it, and there are some real names in there as well. But basically, that is what it's talking about. People who have inside information. Some people know what that Fed statement, and you can be absolutely certain that it's, or not absolutely certain, but you can guess that it may well have been shared in a few places. And that's why we're seeing the movement in advance. And that's why you get the phenomenon of buy the rumor, sell the news. So in actual fact here, we're seeing sell the rumor and it'll be buy the news. So it's either way, it's the opposite way. You buy the rumor, sell the news effectively. So buying the rumor here is buying.
Same concept, just opposite way.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's buying the hawkishness of the Fed, which would cause sell-off in assets. But when the news actually comes out, when the retailers see the news come out and say, oh, hawkish, and they all jump into these short trades, and that's when the market rebounds. And that's precisely why, I did my master's thesis was all about what actually affects the market, what things are predictive in the market. And the conclusion was that no technical indicators alone can predict the market accurately at all. The only real advantage you have is if you have inside information. And that's why we get, as I say, why I think we get the buy the rumor, sell the news, is because all the people who shouldn't have this information, they're actually trading ahead of the news, effectively positioning well ahead of the news. So if there's bad news within a company, say, for example, bad earnings report might be going to come out, and somebody gets a tip off from within the company, and they go out and they go and short the stock in the market. And then the news comes out, and initially the thing sells off, and they close their position. And when they close their position, so they shorted before the news came out. When the news comes out, they then have to buy back their position. So by buying back their position, they actually pump the market higher. And that's really a lot of the reasoning behind why we get buy the rumor, sell the news, or vice versa. So when the news actually comes out, prices go the very opposite way. And that's pretty much what we saw with Japan as well, even with the Japanese yen. So we're not just talking about individual companies here. So we are talking about corruption potentially, allegedly, at the very highest levels, where people get inside information, even trading national currencies on a big scale to profit from information they should not have. But that's unfortunately the way things work. We did say yesterday, just moving over to Solana, we did say that there's an expectation that Solana could well head lower. If you remember, I talked about there being 5 waves. We're working on potentially 5 waves down. We've got wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, And I've said it may not be ABC, this could just be wave 1, 2, 3, because this wave here, the height of this wave, which, well, it didn't overlap this wave. So that means it is theoretically entirely feasible. This could be wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, excuse me, and we're working on wave 5 down. And that actually appears to be working out at the moment. So if this wave goes below here, we'll have completed 5 waves. Then we would expect some kind of recovery, but maybe not to surpass this at this stage, to surpass this level of 209 at this stage. So it's working out pretty well as we anticipated day by day. We're reactive to information. We're very sensitive to information coming in. And that's what we expected yesterday, what we came out in the show and said we expect probably some more downside, especially ahead of FOMC tomorrow. But I think FOMC might be hawkish, but it gives us a surprise the other way. Just keeping an eye on time. I know I haven't got that long. So again, same sort of thing with...
he is messaging me, but you never know if people are going to be on time. Gerard is I'm expecting him to be on time, but we'll see him pop into the backstage.
Yeah.
So you can keep an eye on that too.
Right. So again, we've got Litecoin again, potentially. And I said here, actually made it quite clear here, we've got wave 1 or A, 2 or B, 3 or C. This would be 4, and then potentially 5 down. So I've said potentially it's 1, 2, 3 instead of ABC. If it was ABC, then we start counting down impulsively to the upside. But if it's 1, 2, 3, then this is a wave 4, and it's perfectly valid because it hasn't overlapped this wave 1 territory, which come down to here. So if this is wave 4 here, then potentially we have quite a bit lower to go below this point. So unfortunately, we're in a little bit of a negative time at the moment for crypto. And even, as you say, the memes, which are always, well, usually everything else on steroids, but actually they're not falling that badly. I mean, Doge is actually not too bad, 3.8%. That's on a par with, actually on a par with the rest of the crypto market. So not bad at all. Bonk is down 6.5%, and Booker Memes 5.8%. So some big falls across the market. Solana we're seeing 5.3% downside. Layer 1 Aptos down 4.6%. And then we look at, let's see, XRP is actually one of the better performers, but even so, XRP is showing a bit of negativity there. And potentially we might even see the same, possibly, with another low to come yet on XRP. But following that, we should get a reasonable rebound. I'm not saying to above the previous highs, but a reasonable rebound across the board, I think. And I'm still very positive longer term with Bitcoin. It's been one of the best performers. When you look at it in context here, it's still very corrective. Here within this parallel channel, it's staying very well within the parallel channel. And as long as we stay within this parallel channel, then I think we're going to at least test the top, which is above 70,000, and may even break above that to new all-time highs. So I think we just need to get some of this bad news out of the system. When I say bad news, talking about what's probably going to be delivered to us by the Fed. We have got a couple of other metrics coming through as well. I think there's consumer confidence out of the US. I think it's actually today, later today, I think. And that's actually, they're expecting that to be still reasonably robust. So the US consumer is still feeling good about where they are, even though I know you're talking about the cost of the impact of inflation and everything. But in general, the US consumer is still feeling pretty good about where they are. They're still managing to spend, and that's probably a lot of what's keeping the economy booming at the moment, or booming to some extent anyway.
So we have, the U.S., the very industrious people. I mean, it's the strongest economy in the world. So, and
if we see hawkishness out of the Fed, what that means is basically it means they're concerned about inflation, of course, and that would align quite well with our expectation that we have here with gold, where we've had an ABC correction down, reasonably clear ABC correction. We could still potentially have a bit lower to go, but I do think that the actual outlook for gold, especially if we see a hawkish Fed, meaning potentially they're concerned about inflation. If that is the case, then we would expect gold being the best or the most recognized hedge of inflation. Would expect gold to rally again and take us once again to new all-time highs. So I think that is very much on the cards. Pretty much whatever happens, I think gold is looking still pretty solid at the moment. And I looked at recently, just looked at what are the best investments to hold in times of recession. And in times of recession, gold still does reasonably well. I think I saw energy stocks actually doing quite well as well. But most other things don't do very well. Obviously, bonds would do well short term. If we start to see lower interest rates, then we get a rally in bonds. So if we see recession, then bonds, and if we see stagflation, which is actually a lot of people talked about the potential for stagflation, which is actually stagnant growth with inflation. That is the thing that they're really afraid of. If that were to happen, they don't have any real way to deal with it because they can't stimulate the economy. That would boost inflation. And they can't tackle inflation because that would hammer the economy. So their hands are tied if that happens. But you need to look back to the 1970s to actually see the last time we had real stagflation. And it did cause some serious problems. The world economy and US economy as well was in dire straits in the 1970s. And it took a lot of pain to get out of it because what they do is they tackle inflation first. They just feel they have to get inflation under control. They don't want to, what happened in Germany with the massive inflation and so on. Then they used to use, there's pictures of people with a whole wheelbarrow full of Deutschmark, the German currency at the time, a whole wheelbarrow of money used to buy a loaf of bread. And that was how worthless money became. That's what they really fear. And so they will tackle inflation at all costs. And even if that's at the cost of real pain with employment and jobs and the economy in general, they'll allow the economy to be hammered, but they will tackle inflation. So that's the concern. But I don't think we're in that situation. And I actually personally don't think we're going to even enter that situation, at least not for some time to come. I think we are going to have a recession, but I think inflation will probably come back under control unless we see the Middle East or even Russia or even China kicking off again with geopolitical troubles. That is what would boost inflation potentially by causing oil prices to spike and food prices, grain prices, but particularly oil prices. If they were to spike, then that is a major cause of inflation and could cause this specter of stagflation to actually come about. But we hope that's not the case because that's going to be painful for everybody. So I've run to my time, Bruce. I'm assuming you have your guests ready and waiting.
Mr. Gerard Dachet, you may know him. I'm sure the Government Blockchain Association, I know it has a setup there in Dubai.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, good stuff. We'll continue tomorrow, of course, and have some more stuff. We are pretty excited about Gerard as well. So
excellent. Yeah, I'll look forward to listening to that. Yeah, and tomorrow's a big day, interest rate day. So thanks for having me. Look forward to catching up. Cheers, awesome. Everyone.
Cheers. Hello, Gerard. How are you? This is the great Bruce. Gerard Dachet.
I am bodacious. How are you?
He is bodacious. I'm fantastic. Thanks for joining us here, nice and early in the morning. It's not too early for us on the East Coast, right? But I'll tell you who's got it real easy. Is this guy over here, Mr. David? There in Portugal, 11 a.m. start for him.
Wow.
Yep.
But for those of us in this industry, time really is kind of immaterial because it just kind of flows, right? Because we're a global thing and we got to be on all the time. So
it's true.
Yeah, I mean, time almost doesn't matter.
It is absolutely correct. We are a global thing, and the markets don't stop. It never stops. Speaking of not stopping, you don't stop. You've been doing this for quite a while. It's impressive how you've built this thing, and we want to hear, all about it. What was I'll let you talk a lot, but what was initially your inspiration for putting together the Government Blockchain Association?
It's a little bit of a long story. I'll try to truncate it.
All right, truncate it because we want to hear all about the event.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look. So it kind of is a story of my life kind of thing. And it really has to go with the integrity, right? Throughout my entire life, and Bruce, I don't know if I've shared these stories with you, but sometime we need to do this over a beer or a cup of coffee or something. But integrity has been something that's been tested in me my whole life, right? I was in a situation where at a young age, I was thrown into kind of chaos. My dad died when I was 16 and my mom had a nervous breakdown. So at 16, I was responsible for a mortgage payment and had all those expenses on me. I was a very proud guy. I watched a lot of John Wayne movies. I didn't want to take help from anybody. So I ended up working 5 jobs through high school and college concurrently. Wow. Yeah. So I drove a truck from midnight to 6. I managed a bowling alley. I worked at as a stagehand supervisor. I was a security guard. I went to school full time. And so money was always really tight for me. And I had many situations where, I think God put this challenge in front of me. It's like, hey, listen, here's a lot of money for you to do the wrong thing. What are you going to do? And it just kept happening over and over in my life. When I got into a situation where I became a consultant. I was traveling all over the world and I was advising high-tech companies. Well, actually, I was assessing high-tech companies to see whether or not they could win these really large government contracts, $500 million contracts. And after spending some time in the infantry and intelligence, I started getting contacted by people in China. And they said, would you come to China and would you assess these companies on behalf of the Chinese government to see if the Chinese government could trust them? And he did say, I am a former intelligence professional. I said, no, we know that about you. We actually know quite a bit. I said, well, that's comforting. But we have it on good account that you can't be bribed. And when we send our own Chinese military officers in for these like $500 million contracts, they're bribed. So I said, okay, look, I don't want to look at anything secret. We set up some boundaries. And so I ended up going over there. Well, I got to the point where they tried to bribe me. And when I said no, and I started exposing this really deep corruption, it turns out that people that wanted somebody that was honest didn't really want somebody that was too honest.
Right.
So there were, my life was in jeopardy. They had attempted all kinds of things. At one time, they held me for 3 days in conditions that were a little less than 5-star, if you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't budge. And so the net result of that is a number of people conspired against me, and I lost my career. I lost my professional credentials, my corporate credentials. It was all gone. And I found myself going into my 60s, had lost everything. Now my son had bought a little bit of Bitcoin, and he did extremely well. And when I lost my career, I said, well, I started this little meetup, and I said, well, I need to make this thing work. So we worked from 6 a.m. till 2 a.m. Monday through Saturday for 5 years to get GBA off the ground.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier in the show, right? These things take time. So talk to us now. Fast forward, you have some exciting things going on. First of all, guys, the future, David, if you can put it up there, the future of money, governance, and law, their signature event of the Government Blockchain Association is this week in Washington, D.C. It's May 2-3. If you want to come, I want to see you there. It's the discount code is Impact Money. So make sure to use that. FOMU. Well, there's the link right there, but it's very Googleable. This guy's been building this thing for quite a while. But now, like we were talking about, and it's always great to catch up with you too, because life's crazy, and you and I were able to have a heart to heart. Hadn't talked to each other since whenever it was last year or whatever it was. Hey man, how's it going? A real heart to heart, and everything else. But now you're getting picked up by the U.S. government with your guidelines. You're getting picked up by the UN. How that must be an amazing. It is an amazing thing. How do you feel about that?
There's my favorite movie of all time. I think it's the best movie I've ever seen in my entire life. It's called A Million Miles Away. It's the story of a migrant farmer who has a dream to become an astronaut. And spoiler alert, he does. They would have made the movie if he doesn't, right? And there's a line. There's a couple lines in that movie that really hit me. One of my favorite lines is, "Tenacity is a superpower," right? And I didn't have a whole lot of education. I didn't go to an Ivy League school, right? There's a lot of things that other people had that I didn't have, right? But I could be tenacious. And the other line in there that I really love is when you think you've arrived, work harder, right? And so those two little sort of philosophical tenets. Now I'm a Christian, which drives drives hopefully everything I do. But those two things really mean something to me. So you can say, hey, we've done these incredible things. We've got thousands of people in our organization. We've got over 50 working groups where we do assessments of companies now, and those assessments are published on the UN website. But what I recognize is it's a massive job ahead of us. And if I think I've arrived, I need to work harder. So when you ask me how I feel, I'm grateful for our accomplishments, right? At this event coming up, we have the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. We've got the Vice Chair of the National Credit Union Administration. We've got the Chief Information Officer at the UN Joint Pension Fund, which is an $80 billion fund. We have Don Tapscott. We have some incredible people. But if I think I've arrived, I need to realize I need to work harder because the job ahead of us is big, and I'm not too big for my britches to fool myself. We got a lot of work ahead of us. So I'm grateful, but also recognize there's still much to do.
Well, it is really interesting, and I know you mentioned your faith. We were just with my daughter's confirmation, and it's a lot of what drives me too. It doesn't mean I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but you have a wonderful wife as well, and kids. Kathy is always by his side. So if you come and see us, where is the event?
It'll be at the 1777 F Street Northwest in Washington, D.C. It's the same building where the Council on Foreign Relations is. They're not hosting it, but we are renting space for that building.
That's amazing. Well, I know that it's one of the most important things. I always say the venue is so important. I know you've done some of the great venues. We were at the press club with you before. I know this is going to be also, very, very high end. And as well, David, I had to run out for my daughter to do something, but David, he got to interview the ambassador from El Salvador. Yeah. No, we've had. Oh, and I don't have confirmation. He's got a conflict. You can see if he can clear his schedule with the former chair of the U.S. House Ways and Means Committee, right? So every dollar the U.S. spent was under his signature block. Yes. No, our events are not large retail events like Crypto Miami with thousands of people. They're boutique events. We'll have about 200 or so people there, but all of the people there are very, very serious, and they're impact players in this space. And they stay for the event. I'll say one other thing. In a lot of these conferences, and I tell this to our speakers all the time, listen, don't fly in and fly out. If you're going to come to our event, you need to stay, right? That's right. Yeah. You need to stay and do some business. Of course, I know. I don't know if I'm supposed to say or not, but my friend, the great Brock Pierce, is a little bit involved as well. Brock is Brock, so I don't know if you'll see him there or not at the time that you're there. But Brock is doing his part, which is really great. I mean, Brock is he's such a pivotal figure in the space. He moved here to DC in order to have more influence on what's going on, and it's great to see him involved. Yeah. We'll have a reception at his place after. Actually, it's hosted by Liberland, the Free Republic of Liberland, and it's going to be. Our good friends, the Liberlanders. The Liberlanders. And hey, listen, we got to tell people about the most important part, which is the Cryptopoly reception. Right? Yes. So there's a rooftop reception. It's Monopoly themed. People will be dressing in 1930s style garb. And when you get in, you get to download a wallet. You can inherit, buy, trade, sell properties like Bitcoin, Ethereum, different stuff like that. And then through the evening, there'll be all kinds. There's a jail, of course. If you go to jail, you'll be there with Sam Bankman-Fried. Don't pass go, right? Or go ahead and pass go. Actually, it's not go. It's called the central bank. Print $200. But here's the fun part. At the end of the evening, the person that has the group that has the highest portfolio value is going to win a basket of real cryptocurrencies, totaling thousands of dollars. So it'll be a lot of fun. We'll have a lot of games. And we bought like a couple of $1 billion of fake money. So at the end of the night, we're going to throw all of this fake money in the air and take pictures. I love it. I love it. Well, the last time you had your after reception, I think it was flapper themed. My wife had a great time. She is looking forward to seeing you guys again. My wife doesn't get to go out there with me that much, so it's always fun when we do something here in DC. But this game, I have to tell you, Randy Schwartz, he's one of our partners, and he was there with us last time, and he was like, "Hey man, this game, this looks pretty cool. Is it using ordinals?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a really interesting technology called Jurat. So Jurat's a GBA member. He's donated his technology. So these ordinals it's a Bitcoin fork. But he's really fascinating. His technology allows court orders to read to basically execute orders on decentralized blockchains. So the whole thing is, how do you maintain decentralization? But also you've got a lot of these bad actors, and if they do what they do, there's no recourse. So his technology is you can create a decentralized blockchain network, right? But the nodes can read court orders. So if a court issues an order, it will actually execute the transaction. Once the nodes get consensus, it'll actually execute the court order. So you have legal recourse on a decentralized blockchain.
That's really cool. And what's the name of that?
That's called Jurat, Jurat. Mike Kanovitz is the guy who leads that. He's one of the sponsors of the events. He's really been a great supporter of GBA, and fascinating technology. And this is where we really need to go in the future, because I've always said that people have to be free to be in bondage, right? Meaning there are some people, they want total freedom. They're very libertarian. That not your crypto, not your keys, not your crypto, and they want to take ownership or possession. But you have other people that don't trust themselves. They would rather trust an institution, right? They're like, oh, what if I lose my keys? Somebody might scam me. I don't know. They feel much more comfortable putting their trust in someone else, right? And so we're going to have to look for all of these solutions that really fit both crowds, right? And Jurat is one of those interim solutions where, look, I can play in the decentralized world, but I've got somebody that'll pick me up if I fall down. And I think that we need to make space in this industry for all those different situations.
Well, we're really looking forward to that. I know, like I said, that was the first thing he sent over there, Randy, and I thought it was pretty cool too. I didn't look into it that much. So, real quick, we only have a couple of minutes, but talk to me about the growth of the GBA. How many countries are you guys in? What is your base? I mean, how many tens of thousands of people?
I don't even really know anymore. The GBA had. So we started off as a chapter-based organization, and the way that worked is when I started GBA, I did a search and I identified what are the cities in the world that have the highest number of government employees, and I came up with that 300, and I said we're going there. So literally within a couple of months, we stood up chapters we got to 200 different cities, so all around the world, and we were doing meetups. So meetups were really kind of how we were building this thing. And so I was creating the content. I was sending it out to these meetups. Well, I couldn't create all the content. They would receive it. They would translate it in their language. So I started creating working groups. We ended up creating 50 different working groups on everything from aviation to voting, right? It included cybersecurity, aerospace, quantum, AI, supply chain, identity management, all the areas where blockchain started. So these working groups started developing content that we were feeding out to these 200 working groups. And then there was this thing going around. You probably heard about it a lot. It was in the news a lot, called COVID. And COVID came in and it smashed our chapters, right?
Wow.
They stopped meeting. So
meetups were not really that cool during that time.
No. Well, and then beyond that, in our space, people were tired of blockchain can do this. They became bored of talking about potential and use cases, right? And so a lot of those meetups started dwindling, and then COVID just killed them. So then we pivoted to the working group model, and in the working group model, we started putting out some incredible content. The flagship is something called the blockchain maturity model, because our standards certification group, they realized that 75% of blockchain projects from 2017 to 2023 failed. And why is that? It's because what these guys did is they had a great idea. They put together a pitch deck. They raised tons of money. They started building stuff, but they tried to build a skyscraper without doing the hard work of building out the foundation. And so these things grew quick and crashed. And so this group said, we need to come up with a framework for investors, for acquisition officials, for customers, right, to be able to assess these solutions to determine whether or not they can be trusted. And it also acts as a roadmap for potential developers to determine whether or not, or to help them guide them on how to build those solutions. So we started building that. We started training people around the world. Companies came to us and they said, hey, would you assess us? We did. We started doing assessment. We did 4. We have 15 in the hopper. We just completed an assessment of Oracle. They're bidding on a government contract out of California. And the RFP language says, do you currently have, or are you in the process of attaining a GBA BMM maturity certification, right? So that's the second one. There was one in Mexico. California was next. There's one coming out in Florida. There are private companies in India and Africa that are starting to use this as a criteria because, quite frankly, these institutions don't know how or who to trust in blockchain, right? They hear about FTX, they hear about Celsius and all these things, and they're gun shy. But if you have an organization like the GBA or the UN, they can stand behind the integrity of a solution. They're like, okay, we'll give it a shot. So we've been really focusing on bringing credibility and trust and transparency to the blockchain community, so that these solutions can be trusted and can be adopted.
Well, and that's it's awesome. It's awesome, and it's fun being in it. I know we did a couple of maybe even more than a couple of events here in Washington D.C. as well, and it's not an easy place to do events. It's not. People are very important and they know it, and they don't have time, and who are they lending their name to? It takes a long time to build up that trust where people are comfortable being on the website, you know what I mean? Because it's like I said earlier in the show with CZ, who's going to get sentenced, I guess, today. He's done so much good. And one of the things that we did together, CZ and I and David, was we donated back during the early days of COVID, PPE, masks, and different equipment to the U.S. military. And you would be surprised at how hard it was to get the U.S. military to accept the equipment, because nobody wanted to take it. They were all scared, because if something went wrong, then their butt's on the line. And so people are very conscious of who they associate with, who they come and speak to. And it's really a hats off to yourself, your wife. I know your son's working there as well, and the entire team, that you're able to pull something like this off.
Bruce, you make a great point. We have over 80 government officials that are going to be there. They include people from the SEC, from places where normally they're very gun shy about participating. But we literally, a number of people from Congress. We've got so many people from those places. And we want them to talk to each other. So we have this reception called Birds of a Feather, where we've invited all the government folks to come to one place. We're going to give them some champagne and some shrimp. We'll say, hey, you guys just talk to each other. Yeah. Right. And it creates that kind of atmosphere. They're like, oh, no one's going to try to sell us here, because you got to, for government people, you got to treat them kind of like a different species.
Right.
So no, you're absolutely right.
Straight from the Gerard-A. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm super excited to come. I know Randy is as well. We always like to make an impact. Of course, we'll have some of the interviews we'll carry. You guys will see here on the Impact Money Show, and we'll always try to make an impact. So we'll be talking about this over the next few days, and continue our working relationship. Hopefully, continue to work together more and more.
Your wife is going to be there on Friday night, but not on Thursday night, correct?
That is the plan. Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. You guys have a bodacious rest of your day.
All right, sir. My best to your wife, and we will talk soon.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Gerard.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost. Become a